Welcome to Frame Frolic. Today, we're going to take you back to 1988, a year filled with cinematic milestones, from unforgettable action scenes to bizarre comedic pairings. But there was one film that truly stood out, introducing the world to a filmmaker with a style like no other. Get ready to dive into the behind-the-scenes story of Beetlejuice, the darkly hilarious movie that put the genius Tim Burton on the map. The year 1988 had plenty of blockbusters coming out, such as Die Hard, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and the medieval fantasy classic Willow. Huge one, huh? But it was also the year of one of the best films of the decade, which would highlight a promising filmmaker with a totally recognizable style. Let us know in the comments if you'd like us to dive deeper into the production details of any of these classics. From the start, Beetlejuice was destined to be a completely unique film, a macabre comedy filled with charismatic characters, incredible effects, and a soundtrack that takes control of our bodies with its tunes. And the cherry on top, the impeccable Michael Keaton bringing life to the afterlife. But first, let's take a look at what kind of things were going in the cinematic world at the time. By the mid-80s, a new group of young filmmakers was making a splash in Hollywood. For example, John Hughes was carving out a niche by himself by telling stories about youngsters in a way that no one else could. Meanwhile, George Miller was arriving from Australia with a fresh approach to action films, showcased in his hit Mad Max. But there was another intriguing talent who hadn't yet made his first movie. In 1981, Tim Burton joined Disney's animation department as an apprentice and worked on films like The Fox and the Hound. Burton's unique style quickly started to shine through. Even so, Disney was not going through its best times, producing films that did not align with Burton's vision. But Tom Whittle, head of the creative department, bet on Burton by financing his first shorts. This led to the creation of the famous short films Vincent and Frankenweenie, which earned recognition at festivals and sparked the interest of various studios, with Warner offering him a contract. Don't forget, we've already explored the making of one of Burton's greatest films on this channel. Be sure to check out our video on the creation of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by clicking the link in the description. Actor Griffin sent Burton a script titled After Hours, about a chaotic New York night, where a man just wants to get home. Burton liked the story, but Martin Scorsese ended up directing it. Undeterred, Burton made his debut in 1985 with Peewees Big Adventure. He brought the HBO comedian to the big screen but told an original story, different from the TV version. In this first film, we see a theme that would appear throughout his career, a love for quirky protagonists who stand firm against the world. Peewee's Big Adventure was also a box office hit, earning $40 million on a $7 million budget. Warner was so impressed that they started considering Burton as the perfect choice to direct a new, darker adaptation of Batman, moving away from Adam West's lighter version. But the executives were still cautious. They thought the young director needed another movie to gain more experience, and that would be Beetlejuice. The story originated from Michael McDowell, a writer who also worked as a screenwriter. The first version of the script was more terrifying than what we ended up seeing in the movie. The initial accident was supposed to be more graphic, and Beetlejuice was envisioned as a demon with a diabolical appearance who sought to kill his victims. It was Burton, along with Larry Wilson, who would later be known for writing The Addams Family, who gave it a more comedic tone without losing its dark essence. With the script defined, the search for the cast began, a search that was initially difficult as the story was considered too scary to be funny and vice versa. But after several surveys and meetings, the first names were considered. Geena Davis, who had a brilliant performance in David Cronenberg's The Fly. Alec Baldwin, who was taking his first steps in film coming from the theaters. Angelica Houston was about to sign on, but after falling ill, she had to withdraw, leaving the role vacant. This was added to the challenges of finding an actor who could bring a unique flair to the character. But the big question was who would play Beetlejuice, as the character had to be charismatic. Burton thought of the comedian Sammy Davis Jr., who was 62 years old at the time. It was here that producer David Geffen suggested Michael Keaton, who wasn't very well known, having had only small roles in both film and television. The director had to convince the actor several times to finally accept the role, as Keaton initially didn't understand the character. But after getting to know Burton better and seeing his creativity, he eventually accepted the role. A great decision. Like your decision to subscribe to Frame Frolic and stay tuned for more behind-the-scenes stories from your favorite movies. Finally, for the role of Lydia, the choice was between the teen star of the time, Alyssa Milano, and Winona Ryder, who had only 2 films to her name. Since Milano's fame could overshadow the introverted character of Lydia, Burton took a leap of faith and chose Winona. The film also featured actor Robert Goulet, known as the villain in The Naked Gun, and Dick Cavett, the legendary American TV host. Filming began in March 1988, with locations at Warner Studios for the interiors and in the outskirts of a town in Vermont for the fictional town of Winter River. Beetlejuice is remembered for its incredible effects, with a dedicated team that had a budget of $1 million, utilizing various techniques in the process. Techniques like stop motion, animatronics, and puppets. Burton had at his disposal Edward Franklin Shaw and his team of artists, who were students of the legendary Ray Harryhausen. Having previously worked on Ghostbusters, they were responsible for these effects, some of which were combined with blue screen technology like the sandworm scene, which was a clear homage. Another great aspect of the film is its makeup. From Beetlejuice's characteristic look to the somber Lydia, as well as the characters that inhabit the other world. The makeup artist's work would eventually win the Oscar for Best Makeup. And for the musicalization, one of his great collaborators, composer Danny Elfman, was able to convey a spooky atmosphere, but also with a touch of charisma. Although he wasn't the only one who contributed to the music. In fact, one of the most iconic moments, like the dinner scene, was influenced by actress Catherine O'Hara, who suggested using Harry Belafonte's music. Originally, they were going to use country music with the band The Ink Spots, which would have sounded quite different. Finally, after 2 months of filming and a $15 million investment, the film hit theaters in March 1988, sharing the bill with movies like Good Morning, Vietnam, The Last Emperor, and Colors. It was well received by both critics and the public, being classified as a creative family comedy with horror elements. Beetlejuice grossed $75 million, which greenlit Warner to accelerate the production of Batman, not only with Burton as the director but also with Keaton as the Dark Knight. Beetlejuice even had its animated series from 1989 to 1991, with 83 episodes spread across 4 seasons that had little to do with the movie. The series starred Beetlejuice and Lydia having adventures in both the world of the dead and the living, making Beetlejuice less terrifying and more comedic, in a Homer Simpson style. It also had its own video game version for the Nintendo NES. If you lived through the 90s, you know there aren't many fond memories of movies adapted into video games. It was a kind of a rip-off of Super Mario Bros., where you had to fight skeletons, insects, and ghosts. If the movie was a success, why not make a sequel? In 1991, pre-production began. The story involved the characters moving to Hawaii to build a resort, only to discover it was built on an Indian burial ground, where Beetlejuice would once again cause havoc. The cast was willing to reprise their roles, but, as we know, the project never saw the light of day. The production was only viable if Burton directed it, but he was already working with Keaton on Batman Returns. Beetlejuice would achieve classic status and would have another life as a Broadway musical. For years, there were rumors of a possible sequel, and finally, at the end of 2021, it was confirmed that the production company Plan B Entertainment gave the green light to a sequel with Tim Burton as director, Elfman handling the music, and Winona Ryder returning, alongside the addition of Willem Dafoe and Jenna Ortega. Let's see how this sequel plays out when it premieres in a month. But it's important to remember that this classic hit, the original Beetlejuice, would be the film that brought Tim Burton to the forefront, showcasing his distinct influences and the style that would define his career. It's a great example of creativity, teamwork, and the balance of macabre comedy with great visual effects that continue to captivate new generations. Hey there! Thanks for watching. If you loved exploring the stories behind iconic movies with us, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. We appreciate your support and can't wait to share more fascinating movie tales with you.